Again, welcome everyone. Very happy that you have chosen the Basilica as your spiritual home this morning. And what a glorious summer morning and apparently day. So we wish that continues, that great weather. And if you would say a little prayer, we have our relaunched golf tournament, golf scramble tomorrow. And so please pray that this good weather continues. Friends, we continue our 5-week exploration of the 6th chapter of John's Gospel, which is so important for us as Christians, as Catholics, as a foundation for our Eucharistic faith. There's rarely any time in the church year where we delve more deeply into one particular book from Scripture, but we do this every 3 years during the summer because it's so important to our life as Catholics, particularly as the Eucharist stands at the heart, the center, the source and summit of our Catholic faith. Jesus continues his dialogue from last week, right? And there's murmuring from some in response. He presents himself as the true bread come down from heaven, as the bread of life. And there's confusion, and I would say even a poverty of imagination. How can this man, who is the son of Joseph and Mary, come down from heaven? Right? They're thinking, if you will, dualistically. They're thinking without an imagination of faith. Friends, the Catholic tradition is not dualistic. This is not how we approach the mystery of God and the truths of the faith, but rather, in the Catholic tradition, certain things are held together in dynamic communion. Here are just a few. Faith and reason, Scripture and tradition, faith and works, nature and grace. These are not opposed to each other, but rather meant to be integrated and in communion with one another, which brings life to the world. And they flow dynamically from the incarnation of God, who was fully God. Jesus was fully God and fully human. Both and, not either or. This is the life of the Catholic faith, and it flows beautifully from not only the incarnation as one pillar, but also the Trinity as well. Unity and diversity in the very life of God. Both are celebrated. Now you might say, that's a lot of theology, Father. Let's get to the relevance for our lives of faith. I would say this reality in the Catholic tradition is deeply relevant to our lives of faith. So I'm going to throw one more kind of tension, dialectic tension or dynamic communion upon you today. The body and the spirit. Body and soul together. We are made of a body, and yet in union with that body is the soul, immediately created by God upon our conception. And this is the reality of our lives of faith. So Jesus teaches that both body and soul are important. This is why we have the corporal works of mercy and the spiritual works of mercy. Now, I threw this idea out to Johann, and I don't think he liked it, or maybe he's just discerning it. I thought in the restoration of our church, we have these little medallions here. And what if we had the corporal works of mercy, there's 5, and the spiritual works of mercy, right? We can add to the life of this aesthetic and this church. So we're discerning that. We'll see if it comes to play. Now, why would that be important? Because it talks both about the body and the soul and how important that is. So now to our readings today, which really illuminate that. Part of the challenge that people are having in Jesus' message is they're not thinking in this integrated way. Well, this is the son of Joseph and Mary. How could he be the bread come down from heaven? And the other thing that is illustrative too is the first reading. So we have Elijah making his way to Mount Horeb, and he's exhausted. The work of the prophet was challenging. They were often despised and in some cases killed. and he just wants to die. He wants to go to the Lord. And the Lord sends an angel and says, "Get up," gives him a hearth cake and a jug of water so he can continue his physical journey so that he can do his spiritual work as the prophet. Now, I was thinking as I was preparing for the homily, that must have been one potent hearth cake if it allowed him 40 days in the desert. So what's the message in the scripture? The message is God provides. God calls us, God provides, God sends us to the work that he has called us to. I want to highlight another saint, another holy person, and that is St. Lawrence. We celebrated his feast day yesterday. And most saints, you have a memorial. St. Lawrence gets a feast because he is so important to the Christian tradition. And so in the early 3rd century, there was a Roman persecution, and St. Lawrence was a holy deacon. So he served spiritually at the Mass and attended to spiritual things, but he also attended to the needs of the poor, to their bodily needs, their physical needs. So when the emperor said, "Bring the treasures of the church here," meaning the gold and the silver, whatever money they had, what did St. Lawrence do? He brought the poor, and he said, "These are the treasure of the church." And he was summarily put on a gridiron and martyred. Now, why are the martyrs able to give their lives? Because of the surpassing value of the eternal soul. Because they know, come what may to the body, their soul is in the hands of the loving God. And as the gospel said today, they will be raised. They know Jesus is real and true, that he lived in this world, that he suffered, that he broke bread with us, that he died, and that he was raised. And so no matter what comes of the body, the soul is in the loving hands of God. And this is what allowed the martyrs the great faith and courage to give their lives in that ultimate manifestation of faith. So final point, and then we'll turn to how we can apply it. Catholic social teaching also emphasizes the needs of the body and the needs of the soul. Both are oriented to human flourishing. This is why Catholic social teaching emphasizes religious freedom and why that's so important. It's why Catholic social teaching emphasizes that the human person has certain rights. The right to housing, the right to meaningful work, the right to food and health care, because both are important for human flourishing. I wrote an article for a new Catholic social thought publication at Assumption in St. Paul. It's part of their new center. And I talked about Pope Francis's advocacy for the environment and environmental stewardship. And I received an email from somebody very angry with Pope Francis and said, he doesn't care about the salvation of souls. Well, that's balderdash, is the nicest way I can say it. Of course he cares about the salvation of souls, but he also cares for the good of persons and the privation of their needs and environmental stewardship and intergenerational solidarity in a way that will attend to the needs of generations to come. Both and. Friends, as Catholics, we can be a leaven and a light, and we can evangelize our society by attending not only in our own lives to the needs of our bodies and our souls, but also to do that work in society. It's a way that we can evangelize and be a light and a leaven in this world. God gives us the grace. Jesus gives us the teachings. Allow us to be imitators of God, as Paul says to the Ephesians today.